very pleased to see the group we have here tonight. You can see what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about your life and your choices. And fundamentally, it means getting real, getting ready, and getting a plan. Because with that all done, you can enjoy the rest of your life. I really mean that. And I'll try to explain just why and how that happens. I also have to learn to use this button on this thing. Let me change the slides. Okay, who are you? I'm talking about you people. How many people in here are a caregiver, a care partner, or a care provider? Put your hand up. Oh, wonderful. Now, I'm going to share a story with you before we go any further. 3 years ago, after I was first assessed with minor cognitive impairments, I went to the conference that Susan was just talking about. We have one coming up in November this year. I went to that one. About 300 people there. 80 to 90% of them were all care providers. Was I ever impressed? And I'll tell you why. I have spent a large part of my professional life talking to business groups, health professional groups, educational groups, people generally. But those who are employed in the business, when they go to a conference, they got two things in their mind. One, to have a good time, and the other is to avoid any opportunity to learn anything. That changed entirely when I went to the Alzheimer's conference. And if you haven't been, I would suggest you go. Certainly if you are a care provider, please go, because I was just so totally impressed with all the people that were there and all the care that they really had. You see, there's three terms up there: caregiver, care partner, care provider. I didn't know those terms in those days. They talked about caregivers. Well, I learned that a care provider is someone that sells the services. Then I guess a care partner is like my wife. She's my care partner. Well, I would suggest that whatever role you want to have in there, care is the primary object of that whole activity. And of all the people in this room tonight, it's the care providers that count the most. Not me. Not me. See? How is this other stuff? These are the fancy words I've learned since. This is care recipient, or I'm a client, or I'm a patient. When I first heard the term care provider, I was at this conference. I didn't know anything from anything. So I thought, okay, they provide care. I must be a caretaker. Not the guy that cleans the floor, but I was a caretaker. And that's the way I am right now. I get a tremendous amount of care from my care partner, the care provider. And as I live, as I grow through this whole progression that's ahead of me, that care is just fundamental to the happiness for us both. Okay, now, where are you in the dementia progression? There's no fixed or absolute time frames. I'm going to suggest some times to it. You'll see them in a minute. One or two symptoms in any particular stage doesn't mean that you are at that stage, but you could be. And you've got to consider the whole picture of where you're at. Now let me tell you what I mean here. Here's the mild stage. It might last for 1 to 5+ years. Here are some of the things that distinctly make you at the mild stage. Now, I will also say right now, right on the front, this is the most important stage of your whole development. When it comes to this planning that we're talking about, this is the best chance that you, as a care recipient, will have to participate. This is the time to do it. This is not something to be put off until you get to the moderate stage. Let's talk about the moderate stage for a minute. The moderate stage 2 to 10 years in duration. Here are some of the things that happen during that stage. I'm not there yet. I dare say there are some people here tonight at that stage. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You go down there and, oh, look at that. Likely no longer able to drive. Wow. All my life, I've driven cars since I was 12 years old. I've flown airplanes. I've driven trucks. I love driving. So when it gets to that point where I can't drive, and I know it's going to happen, I'm checking myself practically every day in terms of that capability, I'll know that I'm at that moderate stage. Now I'm going to talk about some of its impacts later on in my planning stuff here. All right, let's talk now about the severe stage. Oh, button didn't work. There we are. I haven't got them all the behaviors down here, but by the time you reach this severe stage, I mean severe, you're at the stage in your life where you need practically constant care of one sort or another, or a variety of those cares in order to live. And you're going to have to plan for it. Now here are some of the things that you're going to have to plan for. Let me get the piece of paper here to keep up with what's up there. Okay, plan. First stage in the plan. Before you do anything else, you got to establish where you are financially. Many of you have done this, some of you have done it all your life. But there are some people who just exist on a day-by-day basis, and they really don't know all the money that they earn. They don't know what comes from the government. They don't know what their pension might be. They don't know what their properties are worth. They don't know what their investments are. You've got to find that out. And you got to match it up with the debts and the loans that you have. I'm sure Heather's going to talk more about these particular acts. But I also want to point out down here at the bottom, scam protection and education. If you've never taken a course on how people can scam senior citizens, now is the time to do it. I was part of a panel last month in which they were talking just about that. There were 2 policemen in to talk about it. We're running out of time, dear? Okay, good. Okay. Housing requirements. This happened to me long before I ever had dementia, particularly with people who travel around in we call them RVs, with fifth wheel trailers or motor coaches or whatever. I did a lot of traveling that way. But I'd find people who, in order to get into the RV world, had sold their family home. So they had this big RV, and they could live in it full-time or part-time or do whatever they wanted, and that was great for them while they could do it, because they had a plan for it. But on the other hand, I know a lot of people who've lived in the family home now for 40 or 50 years. They have dementia. I hate to tell the truth, but you're going to have to move. There are very few of us who can afford to maintain a family home and live with dementia at the same time. It's going to happen. In my case, Sandy and I, we've gone from family home to condo, and with my assessment of dementia 3 years ago, we moved into an apartment last year to make life simple and something that we could afford, something that we could manage through the time. Household expenses. You've lived a long time together. You've got expenses. You know what you spend on groceries and all these other kinds of things. But have you worked it out in terms of what it's going to cost you when you get to the moderate stage of development? I won't back up on that one, but let's just say that at this moderate stage of development, you now need a wheelchair. Okay, well, go get one. Well, then when you bring it home, you find you can't get it up the steps. You can't get it in the door. You can't get it into the bathroom. These are things you have to plan for. One of the things that comes with that moderate stage is you get to a point where you really don't know where you are. I'm not talking after a couple of beers. I'm talking about when you're just trying to live. You just don't know where you're at, where you're going. And there are all kinds of people with dementia who walk out the door, walk down the street, and get lost. Now, we do have artificial dimensions. Excuse me. You really threw me off with that. It's all right. We all have these things that you can wear that will let people know where you are. They'll let you know if you fall down. We've got Fitbits, belts, watches that people can wear to tell you how many steps you take and all kinds of stuff. They can also, nowadays, they tell me, I don't know anybody's got one, but they can put a little microchip in your body somewhere. They can always find you. These artificial devices are available on the market right now. And if you're progressing into that moderate stage and you're in fear of wandering, maybe that's one of the artificial things you're going to have to consider. What have you done to your apartment to accommodate you physically? Because at the moderate stage, you're not very steady walking. You can fall. You can bump into the wall. When you go to the bathroom, you might get seated, but how do you get up again without a handle to pull yourself up? These are all things that have to go into your home. Okay, next thing, before I get too lost in all that stuff. There we are, transportation. Remember I was talking about losing the car license? For me, it would be a major problem, but this is what I have learned. We're lucky here in the City of London. I'll explain this way. The Canadian Automobile Association last year sent out a statistic that it cost $13,682 a year to operate and maintain a 3-year-old automobile. That's almost $14,000 a year. Now, if I can't drive the car, I'll get rid of it. I'll get maybe some little bit of money. I'm not worried about what I'm going to get for it. But what I don't have to spend is $14,000 a year. I can spend that on something else. And it's very easy here in the city with any of the taxi companies. I don't know about Uber and those others, but you can call them up and set up a contract. They'll pick you up anywhere, anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you'll get billed once a month. And let me tell you, you have to do a lot of taxi work to spend over $1,000. So it's not as bad as it might be. Not as bad as the lady that I know who's got a big home up by the lake, and she doesn't want to sell that. She now has lost her car. Her husband can't drive at all. I don't know how she's going to get to the hospital, how she's going to get to the doctors. All these comes with it. So anyway, I've laid out some of these things that you have to think about and plan. And when I say plan, I set up my plan where I laid down all these things that I might have to spend money on. I put across the top the progression of mild, moderate, and severe. Then I factored in a number. I don't know how many of you are conversant with a spreadsheet, but I use a spreadsheet. But you can use just a piece of paper or a tablet or something to make that happen. Oh, okay. There's one. All right, now, I wanted to spend more time on this, but Susan's going to get me out of here. Planning is not just spending money. Planning is what you're going to do with your time. And I'm very sorry for the number of people who have my affliction, who spend a large part of their waking moments worrying about tomorrow or worrying about next year. If you have a plan, you don't need to worry about tomorrow or next year. You got it all down on a piece of paper. What you need to do is plan, what are you going to do for fun? My wife and I, we work out several things to do for fun during the month. That's a part of the plan. I learned a few years ago that I got 3 ups in the morning. 1, I wake up. 2, the sun's up. 3, I get up. Now with my failing memory, I had a 4th one. I asked Sandy, what's up? So off we go. But I'm saying you build that into your plan in terms of the fun that you're going to have. Okay, I don't want to minimize this one. You've got all those facts and figures down. You've laid it out. You've got your plan, where you're going to live, when, and how. All that's going to happen. But you better do what I say here. You've got to create a will. And you've got to have a power of attorney for property. That's finance stuff. And you've got to have a power of attorney for your personal care. And along with that power of attorney for person, you need to put a care plan in there. Because you're going to get to this severe stage. And that requires some pretty extreme measures. You better put that into that will. And along with that care plan, there better be somebody around who knows what you want to do, who you trust absolutely, that you can name in your will as an attorney or a substitute decision maker, who can do it when you can't. Because there will be a time with your dementia when you can't. And you're going to be entirely dependent upon those people. So communicate, tell the people that you know about and that you care what it is that you're trying to do and how you're going to accomplish it. Now, these two people, my colleagues, are going to give you the real detail on how to do it. Heather, I think it's your turn. Well, that's a poem I put up here. Excuse me. It's all right. Susan says she's going to give, if you want the information I've just outlined briefly, she's got it printed out. She can give you a copy of it. Not here, but ask her for it. She can do it. But this is a poem that I've had. I got it from a mentor of mine more than 50 years ago. To me, it's perfect for me at this time in my life.